Hello and welcome to another video which is going to take you from whatever grade you're on to top grades. So this is the first video in a series where I'm going to look at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and only focus on a grade 9 idea. So today's grade 9 idea is about the characters' names. I'm going to take you inside my guide which I've just published. This is how many sections there are in the guide, and each one of those will give you grade 8 and 9 ideas. But we're going to zoom in on just one of those, which is context. Now, the secret with context to getting the top grades is relating what you know to the meaning of the text. And as soon as you make that relation, you're going to succeed. And let me show you how. So I always teach this quotation to my students. In a novel, names are never neutral, and this is from Professor David Lodge. What that means is writers pay real attention to the names that they give their characters. Names are huge clues about the author's intentions. So our first question is, why does he make his main character a doctor rather than just a simple scientist? Well, a doctor is there to help people, and we've got this dual purpose with Henry Jekyll. On the one hand, he creates Hyde just to help himself so that he can exploit this alter ego and carry out whatever pleasures and sins that he wants without suffering the reputation. For Henry Jekyll, he's going to create Hyde to have these pleasures for him. However, he also has in the back of his mind that what he's doing is an experiment that will benefit mankind. He says later on in the novel that he is sure that others will come after him and carry on his work, and he talks about them creating an angel instead of a devil or a fiend. So we're going to zoom in on the fact that he's called a doctor to say that actually Stevenson is opening up the possibility that Jekyll's experiments could have been beneficial science to the human race. So there's an unconventional idea you possibly haven't considered yet. You've probably just been taught that Hyde is evil and therefore the experiment is evil. Okay, well now let's look at the other doctors in the novel. One doctor I want to focus on is the Sawbones. He's the doctor who arrives when Enfield sees the young girl clatter into Hyde and Hyde just calmly walk on. Now the crucial thing here is that this doctor actually wants to kill Hyde, just like Enfield does. And they don't actually murder him, but they commit a crime. They blackmail him out of £100. So here, Stevenson's being quite ironic. He's saying, yes, I'm presenting you with this Christian morality tale, where I create this character Hyde, who is the figure of purest evil, but actually at this moment, he's not doing anything that bad. In fact, the Sawbones, the doctor, notices that the girl is completely unhurt and completely unharmed. No, the people who want to kill, the people who break the law, are the bystanders, Enfield and the doctor. And this is a doctor no longer doing his job. So perhaps Stevenson is suggesting here that in the 1800s, Christianity is preventing scientists from following through their discoveries properly. Christianity is the barrier. Now this links us to the John Hunter house in Leicester Square. This is the real house that Stevenson fictionalizes to put Jekyll in. So there's what it looks like now. It's still standing in Leicester Square. You can see how enormous it is. And if I open up this floor plan, you'll see it had that medical theatre in the middle of the house. There's the opening, which is Jekyll's entrance, and there's the back, which is Hyde's entrance. Now, the crucial thing here is that there used to be several statues of John Hunter. You can see how old this one is, in Leicester Square, celebrating this incredible surgeon who advanced medical science, which of course is what Jekyll wants to do. So Stevenson is reminding us that Jekyll's experiments are supposed to be beneficial. Now, why this is even more important is John Hunter caused an enormous scandal because in the theatre he brought dead bodies, but in order to do that, he paid people to rob graves, steal the dead bodies in order to demonstrate how they were constructed to his medical students. In other words, what John Hunter did was criminal at the time and was morally unacceptable at the time, but led to amazing medical advance. Now, you can see the parallel with Dr. Jekyll. Although at the time of writing, the audience would be appalled at what he's doing because it appears to be an evil experiment to create the evil Hyde, actually, Stevenson is saying to his audience, hold on, wait a few decades, and perhaps Jekyll's experiment would be seen as an incredible benefit to mankind. You know, imagine if you could create better alter egos than yourself. You could create better people. So now we have a sophisticated dual purpose to the novel, which on the one hand is to entertain this Christian audience that wants stories about good triumphing over evil, but on the other hand, Stevenson's saying, actually, the Christian way of looking at the world is maybe not the best way. Maybe what we think is evil isn't, and maybe what we think is good isn't good. Now, you'll be used to the idea that Henry is the good character and Edward Hyde is the evil character. They are doppelgangers, if you like. Oh, that's probably not the right word because a doppelganger will look like each other, but they're alter egos of each other. They are flip sides of the same coin. Now, in his names, he makes that point even clearer because Henry is named after Henry VIII. There were 8 kings called Henry. Okay, so why is Hyde called Edward? Well, because Edward is also a regal name. And hey, guess how many King Edwards there have been? That's right, there have been 8. Now, it's not just the numerical symbolism that Stevenson is after. He's pointing out his theme of class and the gentleman here. He's deliberately chosen names for his character, Henry and Edward, which are royal names, in order to point out that they represent the quintessential, the essential, the stereotypical English gentleman. And so when he portrays Henry Jekyll in a negative light, and when he portrays Edward Hyde in a negative light, he isn't just talking about those 2 characters. He's using them to represent what the British ruling class are like. Hence the reference to royal kings. He's pointing out that the ruling classes are corrupt. Now, here's another bit of context for you, which will take you further into the grade 9. Stevenson really disliked English society, and just a year after he'd finished the novel of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he set off on his travels, leaving England forever and eventually settled in Samoa. And if we click on this picture here, you can see Stevenson there with his wife Fanny, sitting with his guests. These are all Samoan people, and obviously, especially if we pick on this character here, you can see how much they would resemble what people at the time would call savages. And what you've got here is Jekyll's rejection of the civilized gentleman and the rejection of British society and the preference for people who are far more primitive. Now that links directly to Edward Hyde, who is called primitive and ape-like and troglodytic in the novel. That's how British society sees Hyde, but Stevenson himself doesn't see Hyde this way. Now, in my other videos, you will see how to interpret Hyde as not necessarily an evil character. Now, that's a bizarre idea for most of you studying this novel, I know, because that's the way he's studied. And the reason for that is Stevenson is writing for a completely Christian audience in the UK, and they demand Christian themes, and they demand godly behaviour and morality. And so he creates this apparent villain called Hyde. But, another bit of context for you, Stevenson himself is an atheist. He doesn't believe in God at all. So he doesn't agree with the way that his readers want to read the book. Now this caused Stevenson an enormous amount of psychological problems. So when he finished the book, he wrote it as a Christian allegory, so you could read it as a story where Christian values are upheld. But because he didn't believe in those values, it caused him a huge amount of anxiety, and he actually hated the book because of that. He wrote it so that people would realize Christianity is a mistaken belief. But he wrote it too subtly for a Christian audience, and they didn't appreciate the hidden messages in the book. I, of course, bring those hidden messages out to you in my guide, and I will continue to do so in my videos so that you can nail those grades 7, 8 and 9 really easily. Now, the last two aspects of names that I want to draw you to are where the name of Hyde comes from and why Dr. Jekyll turns into Mr. Hyde without the potion for the first time when he's in Regent's Park. So let's go to the first one. Well, Hyde relates, of course, if you know anything about London, to Hyde Park. Now, this again refers to our duality of man, because Hyde Park was created by, guess who? Henry VIII, just as Hyde is created by Henry Jekyll. You can see the symbolism again. But it was created so that Henry VIII could go hunting and could kill. Now you can see the symbolism involved. Jekyll wants to go hunting, not to kill, although Sir Danvers Carew is killed, but he's going hunting for pleasures. So you can see the kind of symbolism that Stevenson's playing with. But even more importantly, Hyde Park is the scene where gentlemen would have gone to parade themselves. So here's Hyde Park, Victorian London. Look, you couldn't just turn up at a woman's house and expect to be admitted and meet her. But if you wanted romance with people of the same class as you, well, this image in particular shows it. Gentlemen would go out in their carriages, ladies would go out in their carriages, the younger gentlemen would go out on horseback and make themselves known to the attractive women. This was a place to meet other people from your own social class, a high class where the gentlemen come from, and meet future partners. So this setting is actually about love and desire for the wealthy, respectable of London. So you're probably just thinking that Hyde means hidden and secret. But no, that's just one meaning that Stevenson wants us to take away. He's also trying to show that that secret side of Hyde represents, again, all the gentlemen and gentlewomen, if you like, of London. They're all corrupt in the same way that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are corrupt. But there is a dual purpose to Hyde, as there is to Hyde Park. So Speaker's Corner is the most famous part of Hyde Park. It is, as you can see here, a historic site in which people have been allowed to say whatever they wanted. Now, in Stevenson's time, you couldn't just say whatever you wanted because of social rules and social morality. You know, you could certainly say what you want now all over the place in our society, but not so in Stevenson's. Now, one of the things that you definitely could not promote in Stevenson's time was any tolerance of homosexuality. And elsewhere in the guide, I show you how understanding the attitude to homosexuality will help you understand the whole novel. I'm not going to go into that now. I'm just going to talk about the idea of freedom of speech, the idea of freedom, which Hyde represents. He is freedom from society's views of what's right and what's wrong. Remember, that's why Jekyll creates him. He doesn't create him to go out to commit crimes. What he says at the beginning, so when I say the beginning, I mean the beginning of his full statement, the confession, that he would quite happily, if he'd been working class, for example, have committed whatever sins he was committing. They weren't that bad. So he says many a man would have even blazoned such irregularities, so they would have shone in them like sunlight. You know, they wouldn't be trying to hide them away. They would have said, look, this is what I'm like, deal with it. But because he's a gentleman and he has to uphold a reputation, he can't afford, he thinks, to allow himself to be seen in this way. And that's important because it tells us that Hyde wasn't invented in order to be criminal. He was invented simply to keep pleasures which society thought were a bit undignified hidden away so that Jekyll couldn't be accused of letting down his social class. Well, what do you think Stevenson's point of view about this was? He certainly wasn't on Jekyll's side. He doesn't think that Jekyll should have hidden these things away. He thinks a man should be himself, as we have seen by his going to Samoa and rejecting this whole way of life that Jekyll is talking about, and rejecting this Christian way of dividing the world up into good and evil. He simply doesn't believe in that kind of view of real life. Now, I'm not going to bore you with loads of stuff about different names, but you can read this for yourself. These are the reasons why Dr. Hasty Lanyon is called Dr. Hasty Lanyon, why Richard Enfield is called Richard Enfield, and why Gabriel John Utterson is called Gabriel John Utterson. This is quite a big topic and I'll make a separate video on it. Now, apart from the brilliant quality of my analysis that's in the guide, it also has another massive advantage. Remember this that I've just shown you. These paragraphs are horrible. You know, I've got an English degree. I've read the novel about 12 times. And I hate the way that it's presented in books. So here's a book on Amazon. And you can see, look, these massive paragraphs that fill a whole page. Just not easy to read. So I make less money this way because Amazon charged me for every page I put into the guide. But I thought, look, I've got to put in a copy of the novel for free into the guide, and you can see what I've done to the paragraphing. I haven't changed any of the words at all, but every time there's a change of time, topic or talk, I've included a new paragraph. And it's just so much easier for a modern reader to read. Visually, it just looks so much less of an ordeal, doesn't it? So, not bad. That's for free. But it actually cost me money, as I said, because that's 40,000 words that I've put in my guide that didn't need to be there. And Amazon charges me for printing every single one. A bit of a mug, really. But never mind. My purpose here isn't just about the money. It's to get you grades 7, 8 and 9. And I think that will help. Now, if you look at the descriptions underneath any of my video, there's this link to Amazon Kindle Unlimited, which allows you to read all of my guides for 30 days entirely for free. It also gives you unlimited reading of any book that has opted into Kindle Unlimited. You can see a few there, magazine subscriptions and audiobooks. Now, the cool thing about that is you get to read all my guides for free for 30 days because you can cancel the membership after that. And Amazon gives me a small fee to recompense me for the fact that you've got all my guides for nothing. So I think that's win-win. So why not click on the link and check out what you can get for 0 pennies. So if you're still here, thank you very much. Let me know what you think about the cover. I really struggled with that one. And here's a surprise. Yep, that really is a Dalek staring at me from the top of a roof. But do you know where I am? Hope you enjoyed it. This is where I'm going. See you later.